Hey everybody, welcome back to World History. We're doing section 2 today, so go ahead and get your notes out and let's get started. So, really what we're going to be looking at with this section is just how the rest of Europe responded to the Enlightenment. And it's important to remember that new ideas began to challenge society. The ideas of the Enlightenment spread quickly through many levels of society. Most government and church authorities felt they had a sacred duty to defend the old order. So they waged a war of censorship or restricting access to ideas and information. They're going to ban and burn books and imprison a lot of writers. Remember last time we talked about Voltaire being sent to prison. People would then start to gather in these salons to exchange ideas, basically these giant parties. And many writers are going to start to hide their ideas in works of fiction because you can't penalize somebody for writing fiction. Like Voltaire's Candide is going to expose the corruption and hypocrisy of European society. Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels is going to satirize 18th century England, and Montesquieu's Persian Letters are going to openly mock a fictional French society. Yet all of this was in fiction, so those writers weren't arrested or sent to prison or banned. Now, arts and literature are going to start to reflect these new ideas as well. The arts are going to evolve to meet changing tastes. This was seen in art, music, and literature. The first thing is we got to talk about the major change to art, which is Baroque versus Rococo. Baroque art was huge in the court of Louis XIV, and they were huge, colorful works of art that glorified historical battles and saints. Think like very giant versions of Renaissance art that we talked about earlier this semester. Rococo art moved away from religion and was lighter, more elegant, and charming. We'll look at an example in a minute. We also have a series of new music emerge. This is where we get classical music. People like Bach are going to create religious works for organs and choirs. George Friedrich Handel is going to write for King George I and write 30 operas. Haydn's going to develop the string quartet and the symphony, and Mozart is going to create operas, symphonies, and religious music that defined an entirely new style of composition and music. So here's that difference I was telling you between Baroque and Rococo. As you can see, this is more religious, and this one is more lighthearted, depicting everyday people. So, arts and literature also are going to continue to reflect these in literature. This is where we get the creation of novels or long works of prose fiction, and they're going to expand during the Enlightenment. A great example is Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. And middle-class readers are going to like stories about their own times in straightforward language. It's where we get the novel that we have today. So, enlightened despots, they're going to embrace new ideas. The courts of Europe became enlivened by the philosophes. Some monarchs did accept Enlightenment ideas. They were known as the enlightened despots. They used their power to bring about political and social change. And there were three major enlightened despots: Frederick the Great, Catherine the Great, and Joseph II. So, starting with Frederick, he was the king of Prussia and saw himself as the first servant of the state. Some reforms he did during his time in power: he reduced the use of torture and allowed a free press. Reforms were directed at making the Prussian government more efficient. Frederick desired a stronger monarchy and took more power for himself, which seems like the opposite of the ideas of the Enlightenment. Because if you remember from last time, we talked about more power to the people. If it was an unjust government, you had the right to overthrow it. This doesn't sound like that, right? So, Catherine the Great of Russia. She was a huge fan of the Enlightenment and even going so far as to exchange letters with Voltaire and Diderot. In terms of reforms, she abolished torture and established religious tolerance, granted nobles a charter of rights, and criticized the institution of serfdom. But she also wanted to keep power for herself. That led to an expanded Russian Empire. So far, two of these three enlightened despots have done nothing but keep power for themselves. Finally, Joseph II, the Emperor of Austria. He was an eager student of the Enlightenment, and even went so far as to dress up as a commoner and travel among the people to learn more about their problems. Some reforms that he did, he worked to modernize Austria, and he supported religious toleration for Protestants and Jews, ended censorship, sold church lands, and abolished serfdom in Austria. However, many of his changes were reversed after his death and his son took over. So again, all these enlightened despots, for all the good they did, they didn't get rid of any of their power. The lives of the majority aren't going to really change. Most Europeans were untouched by the Enlightenment. Many remained peasants living in small rural villages, untouched by courtly or middle class culture. And culture is going to change slowly. The Enlightenment ideas aren't going to reach these villages until the late 1700s. By the 1800s, these ideas, along with war and political upheaval, led to change. It's why the next couple chapters we're looking at a lot of revolutions. All right, that is it for your notes for today. World history does not have an assignment after this video. Honors World History, you do have an encyclopedia project that is posted on Google Classroom. I'll see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.